But our communication was highly focused on what was going on logistically with the legal case and the struggles that we were navigating with Annika and your ex. And all that was on top of all the regular realities of life and work and maintaining the household and raising our 2 mutual children. And through all of that, we certainly weren't focused on us.
No.
Friendship was not a priority.
No.
We were basically in survival mode. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Hey there. Thanks for putting some time and energy into joining us today. We're so grateful that we continue to have listeners support us and even reach out to us regularly. You know what? We're grateful for the feedback that we continue to receive as well. Recently over on Apple Podcasts, we heard from a listener. I love their username, which is Fun Stuff, who left a review and said, "Great podcast filled with useful tips and actual usable steps to take to improve your relationships with your kids, your stepkids, your spouse, and your ex-spouse."
Ooh,
yeah.
that's
And they
awesome.
went on to share a few other things, but I just want to say thanks to Fun Stuff for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, we really try to be intentional about making each episode valuable to you in either making a meaningful mindset shift or giving you some practical tips and strategies that will make an actual difference in your family.
Right.
And it sounds like Fun Stuff is having a lot more fun in their family, not simply because they're listening to the show, but there's got to be some action being taken to deploy some of those tips as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for that feedback, Fun Stuff. And we commend you for rolling up your sleeves and putting what you're learning into action. Great job.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, we'd love to hear from you too. Would you take a moment to just tap the star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and maybe even a few minutes to leave us a review as well? We're always so grateful for your feedback. Okay, so let's hop into the topic for today, hon. What are we talking about?
Well, today we're exploring friendship in marriage. And well, friendship might not seem like a big, important topic. Maybe for you, it's kind of one of those warm, fuzzy ideas. It sounds nice, but isn't all that necessary or even practical, especially if life at your house is in a constant state of chaos, conflict, or busyness.
Yeah, what do we need to focus on friendship for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So right now you might be thinking to yourself, who's got time for friendship? We've got real issues in our marriage. And how is the topic of friendship going to solve all the issues and all the conflict around the issues that we're dealing with?
Yep. And if that's you and you're getting ready to press the button and move on to some other show, I just want to encourage you to stick around for a little bit, because nurturing your friendship in marriage is actually a great way to ease tension and reestablish a foundation of trust and connection. And that's actually true regardless of the issues you're struggling with. Now, it might not solve all your problems, this friendship focus, but it can definitely help to position your relationship in a healthier place where you're more likely to be able to communicate well and work through your issues. And we know how important friendship is in marriage. Like, we
Right.
started out with a pretty good friendship, and then we lost it in the middle there
Yeah.
about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And now we've regained it. And so we speak with a little bit of authority.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today. So hopefully you're going to stick around because we've got some good stuff to share today.
Ooh.
We've got some personal insights because, like you just said, honey, we've also struggled to maintain friendship in our marriage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we had a pretty long season there where we were certainly not even intentional about nurturing that friendship. And eventually we found ourselves disliking each other a lot more than we wanted to.
Right.
And, through that season, I was still pretty adamant that we were going to go do date nights I'd heard from mentors, people that I trusted, that like we had to do regular date nights if we wanted to experience that vital marriage. So I was pretty focused on that, even in that difficult season.
You were, but I remember actually dreading going out on date night with you, honey.
What?
Well, I didn't like being around you.
I know.
We're being honest here, right?
That's
We're
right.
keeping it
That's
real.
right. And it wasn't just you. I didn't want to be around you either, actually.
Yeah. And it was pretty unrealistic to even think that we'd be able to have a conversation that wasn't filled with a lot of conflict and pain, because that's what was going on for us.
Yep.
We'd been struggling for years with everything from, parenting issues to dealing with my unstable ex. And it seemed like all we could do was disagree, fight, and cause each other a lot of pain.
That's right. We'd been putting our relationship on the back burner for quite a while, and we were hyper-focused on all the difficult issues that we were facing.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, we really weren't friends.
No.
Sadly, we'd become more foes than anything. And so we've had to go through this process of reestablishing our friendship, which hasn't always been easy.
No.
But we've finally gotten there. I'm really grateful
I know,
for
me
that.
too.
Not only do I love you, but I actually kind of like you too, which
It is nice
awesome.
to like each other.
I know. And now I'd say our friendship is probably stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like when we started out in our dating relationship and our early married life, that our friendship was pretty solid,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we laughed a lot together. And we enjoyed each other's company. We could talk for hours and hours. And on our wedding day, I truly believed I was marrying my best friend.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way too. I felt super connected to you. Maybe if you're listening, maybe you would describe how your relationship started out that way as well as friends, and maybe you can relate. Maybe you believed that your friendship was really strong and that you and your spouse were connected and had so much in common.
Right. Maybe you experienced those butterflies when you saw their name, come up on the caller ID, or when a text came through from them and you couldn't wait to talk and connect with them, and you experienced real friendship and connection as a couple.
Yeah,
Remember those early days?
Absolutely. And now maybe you're thinking back to those early days and you're wondering what happened, or why the relationship feels so distant. Far from being friends, maybe you're where we were and you're becoming more like foes rather than friends.
Right. Or maybe you're like many couples we talk to who say their relationship is great and they really feel connected to each other when the kids aren't around, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
But they actually dread scheduled visitation with either their spouse's kids or even sometimes their own kids, simply because when the kids are present, their relationship takes a sharp nosedive and they're either walking around on eggshells with each other because the tension is high, or they're bickering and fighting about every little thing because they can't seem to connect or get on the same page as a couple when the kids are around. It's
Feels
so
like
common.
a roller coaster, doesn't it? Yeah. So whether you've feeling like you've lost the friendship that you enjoyed in the early stage of your relationship and you feel more like foes right now, or if your connection and your friendship seems to kind of dissolve when the kids come around, or, maybe you're on the other end and your friendship is strong right now and you just want to be proactive in learning how to cultivate an even stronger friendship together, then this episode's for you. So it's probably for about everybody.
Right. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Now, most of us tend to underestimate the importance of really focusing on friendship, or we discount the value of cultivating friendship in the relationship. But we want to invite you to engage with this discussion, not from a position of, I don't know if this applies to me, but rather from a position of how might this apply to me? And I want you to hang in there with us and really stay curious. What if you could experience a community that's all about healthy support, guidance, and practical strategies that help you thrive in your blended family? Well, now you can. Blending Together is a supportive community for blended family couples just like you.
We've educated and supported hundreds of couples navigating the unique challenges of blending a family. Now we're inviting you to join our community and experience the transformation that awaits you. But you'll need to act fast because we're getting started soon. Blending Together is not just another community. It's a place where you'll find practical, real-life strategies for building unity as a couple,
and creating more connection as a family,
experiencing partnership in parenting,
and even dealing with that difficult ex.
Blending Together is a safe, growth-focused space where you get to connect with us and, maybe more importantly, with other blended family couples who truly understand what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, you'll discover practical tools, guidance, and hope that empower you to find a future full of confidence and connection.
When you join Blending Together, you'll get to hop into a variety of resources like access to our private Facebook group and online learning platform, monthly coaching meetings, monthly Q&As, and you'll even get to vote on the content for our monthly workshops.
Mm-hmm. Blending a family can often leave couples feeling alone or isolated and stuck, and quality support can sometimes be expensive. That's why we're offering you access to all of this at a super low monthly rate, because every blended family deserves the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their budget.
That's right. So join us in the Blending Together community and unlock the secrets to successful blending. Together, we can create a future filled with hope, connection, and peace. But don't wait. Click the link in the show notes now. The doors will be closing on October 8th, and you don't want to miss out on this unique opportunity to create the future you really want alongside other couples who genuinely get it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we can't wait to meet you there.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, I have to admit that friendship and marriage is something I've kind of dismissed in the past, or I haven't thought much about, really. Mm-hmm. But when I heard the research around men's relational needs, I had to reconsider the importance of friendship. Listen to this. No one plays as significant a role in meeting a man's unique needs as his wife. Researchers have identified his need, but only his wife can truly satisfy them. And two of those are a man's need to be admired and to enjoy shared activity. Now, I wasn't expecting this when I read through this research, but I do see how that plays out in our relationship and with other couples as well.
Sure.
And, the bottom line is friends admire each other. They have an appreciation for each other, or they wouldn't be friends in the first place, right? I'm not about to seek out a friendship with someone I don't have some admiration for.
Right.
And ladies, I'd bet that on your wedding day, you experienced a great deal of admiration for your husband. And let's talk about that second need, because it was a bit surprising. Husbands need to enjoy shared activity with their wives. So ladies, this is how your husband connects with you. And of course, friends enjoy doing things together, all kinds of things.
Yep.
And honey, you really enjoy shared activities with me. You've told me that one of your favorite date memories was with me. It was a day date when we went on that really long, exhausting bike ride together.
Yeah, you hated it, but I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it really exceeded my cycling abilities, but you really enjoyed that ride, and it created some really meaningful memories for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really true. And I do love it, especially when we get out and we get active and we'll go for a walk or, like that bike ride, that kind of thing. But there's other things I like too. It wasn't that long ago, we were sitting in a Starbucks and each of us were just reading a book.
Yeah.
And I remember after that going, I really enjoyed that. We just read a little bit and then we'd kind of look at each other and talk a little bit about what we're learning or a thought might cross our head and we just interact. And, I'm a bit of an intellectual sometimes. So for me, that's a shared activity. And that really made a difference for me.
It doesn't have to be something physical. Yeah, it can be anything, really.
It can be a lot of different things. Yeah. And, then there's the flip side, too. We might be wondering, well, what's the research say about what most women need in their relationship? Well, her needs also correlate with connection and friendship. And research reveals that two of a wife's most basic needs in marriage are to be cherished and to be known. Guys, this is what makes your wife feel most loved. And if you think about your closest friend in the world, maybe your one or two buddies.
Yeah.
Maybe it is your spouse, but it could be, someone else, right? But whoever that best friend is, you might step back and think, well, they know you really well. And maybe you know them really well, better than anyone else in the world. And that creates a connection there. It's a part of a need that all of us have, but women especially have that. And we might say it's true that we cherish a friend. Now, guys, I know you're going, what? Like, seriously, I know if I had sat in a coffee shop with one of my buddies and I was like, you know what? I just really cherish you. That might be the end of my friendship, actually, right? But the reality is, there's a couple of people on my friend list that are super, super important to me. And I really make it a priority to stay connected to them. And if I really had to, and I know I'm saying this on a public forum, and I hope none of them listen, but I actually really cherish them. I really do. And so it's not just a women's need, but if you think about it, you want that too, and you need to give that to your wife.
Yeah, women really need it.
Absolutely. So, friends are known and they cherish each other.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. So if we want to meet these basic needs for each other and cultivate friendship in our relationship, then we've got to be intentional. Friendship is something to be worked at and worked out. It takes time, energy, and effort. And we're going to share some practical ways to do that in a minute. But first, let's explore just a bit deeper around the importance of friendship. When we can understand that a little bit better, I think we're going to have some more motivation to take some action around this, right?
Sure, yeah. The Gottman Institute, which is a leading research group focused on marriage and relationship, they report having a strong friendship correlates with a positive perspective of the relationship. Now, they also say that it builds effective conflict management and a strong sense of us. What this implies is that when we've developed friendship in our relationship, it creates the kind of real connection that can help us to navigate all the ups and downs of life together.
Absolutely. Right? A friend is someone you can laugh with and cry with. They're that person that's there for you when everything seems to be falling apart. They're able to empathize with your experience, to offer a listening ear, a reassuring hug, some kind words, encouragement, and practical support. A true friend knows you inside and out. They see all your flaws and your failures, and they love you anyway.
That's right.
They don't run away when things get hard, but they remain by your side as a constant presence through thick and thin.
Yeah, a friend is someone who's willing to wade through the messiness of life alongside you, right? They're kind of in the trenches with you. They're also there to celebrate the wins with you. Friends enjoy time simply hanging out together, doing kind of nothing. They play together, travel together, they seek adventure together. They do all of life together, the good, the bad, the joyful, and the really challenging pieces too.
Yeah, and isn't that what we all want in our marriage? So take a moment to just stop and think about what a stronger friendship might look like in your relationship, and how would that impact your ability to stay connected and cope with all the stress and those inevitable bumps in the road, right?
That's right. The reality for all of us is that we're going to experience tough stuff in life as individuals, as a couple, as a blended family. But if you've got a solid foundation of friendship in your marriage, you're going to be in a much better place to weather the storms of life and team up to remain connected, even when you're experiencing pain, uncertainty, chaos, or even conflict.
So, yes, absolutely. Friendship is important in marriage. But it can also be challenging for spouses to maintain a solid friendship when they feel more like roommates or business partners or even battling foes.
Yeah.
It's common for couples to get high-centered on, managing all the logistics of family life, and they get caught up in conflict when things don't go as expected. When we tend to focus on what's not going well, it's easy for the communication between us to slide into, those sharp jabs, those words of criticism or even contempt. We might jump into a defensive stance or avoid and stonewall each other.
Absolutely. And, isn't it funny how we're talking about friendship, and I've got, these different buddies that I have in my life, and sometimes we disagree on stuff. Sometimes, our friendship has tension in it. And yet I find it within me to speak to them pretty respectfully, and I can be somewhat kind, and I can kind of negotiate with them and all of that. But how many times over the years have you and I gotten in a conflict and I'm not respectful and I'm not kind and I don't negotiate well and I just get selfish and focused on me? Like, wow, like you're even closer than those buddies are. Why would I not be investing in that type of
and
interaction?
I'll shut down and walk away and avoid.
Totally. And then when we get stuck in these patterns of unhealthy communication, it's difficult, maybe even impossible to grow and maintain a healthy friendship. So it's kind of reciprocal here. Like the friendship builds good communication, but good communication can help build friendship as well. Back in episode 59, we talked about the 4 conflict communication patterns that are hurtful and toxic to your relationship. And we examined John Gottman's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And if these toxic patterns have emerged in your relationship, I want to really encourage you to check out that episode, which also explores how you can break free from those patterns by using what Gottman calls the antidotes. And so we'll put a link in the show notes for you to do that, because if communication is toxic and we're treating each other like foes, our sense of connection is going to break down, and certainly our friendship is going to suffer.
And this is where we were stuck all those years ago, honey.
Yeah.
We had been treating each other as foes for quite a while, rather than investing in growing our friendship. And we had some unhealthy patterns of communication between us and a lot of unresolved issues.
Sure.
And I think we both realized that it's really hard to even have a desire or a motivation to focus on our friendship when we've got all this other stuff weighing us down, and when we view each other as foes, when we're actually think of each other as the enemy.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And if you're listening today and that's where you and your partner are stuck, we want to encourage you to reach out for support, right? You probably need some support. We eventually got professional support to work through our tough emotions and resolve some issues. And that made a big difference for us. It was a combination of mentorship as well as counseling, and that really helped us. And you know, coaching, counseling, mentorship, there's a place for that in our relationships.
Absolutely.
And so don't be afraid to really reach out for help.
Yeah.
But we also intentionally worked on reestablishing our friendship along the way.
Yeah.
This was why I was so adamant about continuing our date nights, even when date nights weren't very much fun. And we actually had quite a few that were just plain old uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
But we'd hit a point where we were either going to throw in the towel and give up on our relationship, or we were going to get intentional about saving it. And working on friendship was a big piece of the intentionality.
Yeah. And honestly, I was pretty skeptical that we even could be friends again after everything we'd been through and all the pain we'd been experiencing.
Yep.
It didn't seem very realistic to me. But I also didn't want to give up on our marriage and our family, so I was willing to at least give it a try. So even though I dreaded going out and spending time with you, honey, which is really sad to say,
sad. I mean, we chuckle about it now, but it is pretty sad.
That's where we were. Even though I dreaded it, I forced myself to get ready and go out on date nights.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one date night during this really difficult season. We were at a restaurant and I just sat at the table and I just remember tears streaming down my face. It was so hard.
Pretty silent. That was over at Luna's Cafe in Bellingham, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that's such a, Luna's is such a sweet romantic spot. But I couldn't enjoy myself, and I don't think we spoke much to each other that whole night because we were both really hurting.
That's true. But we didn't just say, oh, well, forget it, date nights are out, because we were struggling.
Right.
It was hard to enjoy each other's company, and it was just a tough time.
It was.
But we persevered and we found ways to connect and gradually regain our friendship.
It took work.
Yeah, it did. We still do go to Luna's Cafe. In fact, we went there recently, and it's one of our favorite date night destinations.
Yeah.
But now we're able to relax, laugh together, we share openly, and enjoy each other's company.
That's right, but only because we got intentional about reestablishing our friendship and we pushed through the uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And we also got support and learned how to communicate better. Now, friendship is just one piece of the puzzle, like we've mentioned, but it's an important piece if you want to truly experience connection, satisfaction, and enjoyment in your marriage. So let's talk about some practical ways to grow and maintain friendship in your relationship. And these are things we did. If you want to establish friendship, and if this is where you're at and you're really struggling, we've got some ideas.
Yeah, let's just focus on a couple of primary things. First, let's talk about what it's like to move from what we call vagueness to vulnerability. Often when we're hurting, we might just naturally tend to shut down or clam up, kind of turn inward. We might not feel safe to openly share what's really going on inside. Like if our friendship is disrupted, I'm not ready to be like, hey, I think I want to bare my soul to you, right? Or we might feel compelled to actually disengage, like purposely pull away.
Yeah.
And that's when we start becoming really vague in the way that we communicate and relate with our spouse. We're kind of emotionally unavailable. We aren't showing up. We're not really being genuine in a way that engages each other in the middle of the tough stuff that we're experiencing.
And this is how I tend to cope with pain. At least that was my pattern in the past. But I've learned over the years that true friendship requires vulnerability. You know, a real friend always lets you in, and they're transparent and honest with you. Now, at this point, years later, I'm able to acknowledge all the benefits of vulnerability. It really is a healthy release valve to authentically be who you are.
Yeah.
Now, when I choose to be vulnerable with you, honey, I don't have to pretend to be someone or something that I'm not.
Right.
I can be real with you even in my struggle and still be acceptable and loved by you.
Right. Yeah. And when you're able to open up and kind of let me into whatever's going on, your pain or your struggle or whatever it is, then I'm able to extend a bit more empathy and understanding for what you're going through. I don't have to guess what's going on or try to read your mind. That's kind of a futile endeavor anyway.
Yeah.
But your ability to be more vulnerable over the years has actually drawn me closer to you. And then I feel more safe to open up and be vulnerable with you as well.
Right. It's just so freeing to simply be who you are and to share exactly where you're at emotionally, even if that's in a really ugly place.
Yeah.
And that's just one benefit of vulnerability, because you really can't achieve true friendship without being fully known. Another benefit is that vulnerability builds trust.
Yeah. It's really a trustworthy act. The more I know you, the more I can trust you. You know, in our early years when you were kind of more in a pattern of shutting down on me when things were hard and I was trying to understand and relate to you, it was really frustrating because things felt vague to me. You were emotionally unavailable. I wasn't really sure if you were a trustworthy person when it came to navigating all the challenges we had together. And sometimes you went along with things just to appease me or to avoid conflict. But then later it would come out that you didn't truly agree with my perspective at all. You were, you know, kind of just going, oh, well, you do whatever you want. But then later, you would abdicate. You're right. Then you'd get resentful because you weren't being heard.
Right. It was a vicious cycle.
It was, yeah. But that would lead me to start to question you. I never knew if you were being really honest with me about your true feelings or if you were just trying to avoid an issue by telling me, you know, what you thought I wanted to hear rather than what you really felt. But when you started being more consistently vulnerable and real with me, I started going, okay, I don't have to guess where Kim's at anymore. And then that meant trust grew over time. Now I have a tremendous amount of trust in you. And so much of that is because of you learning how to be vulnerable with me.
Right. And as it turns out, trust is critical in marriage.
Who figured? Who would know? Yeah.
Hand in hand with vulnerability. They're both important, especially if you want to build and maintain a healthy friendship.
Yeah.
But, you know, vulnerability can be really hard. I know this because I struggled with this for years. And I really tried to hide my true self because I was afraid. I didn't know if I would be acceptable.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough about the value of vulnerability and staying emotionally connected to your spouse, even when your emotions are raw or they feel really awful. You can choose to be more transparent and open. And, you might be pleasantly surprised at how freeing this can be and how much more connection and friendship you're going to enjoy in your relationship when you can be vulnerable.
For sure. Earlier I talked about a woman's need to feel cherished in the relationship, and this is highly tied to vulnerability. Guys, most of us, when we have these discussions around vulnerability, it's like, oh goodness, here we go. It's the feelings talk, right? We got to talk about our feelings, and I get it. It's hard, and we don't
like
to
talk about. Some men, not all men. You love to talk about your feelings.
I just jabber on and on about all kinds of things, right?
I'm the one that doesn't want to talk about feelings.
It is true, but the research shows in general that need to feel cherished is actually tied to this idea of vulnerability,
right?
Because to be known and still be loved in imperfection and all of that, that is a sense of being cherished. And, the roughest guy might be listening right now. And you know what? At the core of it, he probably needs to feel cherished too.
Right.
And this mutual vulnerability that actually grows friendship and talks about real life, difficult stuff, it builds that sense of being cherished on both sides. But women definitely need to feel cherished. My guess is when I am vulnerable with my heart and really honest with you about what's going on inside, I'm guessing that you actually feel cherished because I'm revealing myself to you. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then the flip side, there's times where I get genuinely curious about, hey, what's really going on inside of you? And I would be willing to bet in those moments you also feel cherished.
Yes, that's true.
Absolutely. So when we have this mutual vulnerability, it starts to grow that sense of being cherished, and all of that builds our friendship.
Exactly. Yeah.
So think about how you might move from being vague to being more vulnerable. And if you want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on this, you can check out episode 98, titled, Is Fear of Being Vulnerable Keeping You from Loving Your Spouse Wholeheartedly? This is all connected, right?
Yep.
And we'll put a link in the show notes to that, as well as episode 129. That one's called, What Does It Take to Build and Maintain Trust in Your Relationship? So you can go check those out and do a little bit deeper dive on vulnerability and trust.
Absolutely. So make an intentional effort to move away from being vague and to be more vulnerable with your spouse.
Right now?
Anytime.
Oh, I thought I was going to be.
Do you have something to share?
I don't know. How long do we have on this episode?
Yeah, you do like to share.
Maybe we better just move on.
No, we need to keep going. Yeah. So our next tip is to move from logistics to longing. Now, we all start out in our relationship with this deep sense of longing.
Sure.
We long to understand each other and to connect in a meaningful way. We ask lots of questions to get to know each other, and we're eager to answer those questions and even elaborate on things like our childhoods and where we've been in the past, what we've experienced, and where we're at in this season of life, right? We love to share.
Yep.
We share our hopes and our dreams for the future, and we never seem to run out of things to talk about as we continually make those heart-to-heart connections that tend to come pretty naturally in those early days of dating and romance.
Yeah,
right?
It feels like we don't have to work at it. We just talk for hours and hours on the phone. So we find ways to connect and communicate. We start anticipating the next time that we're going to be together. We talk and share more and more with each other. And we experience that magical kind of connection where we just, know each other. We might even tell our friends that our new partner really gets us. Right. And we certainly you and I experienced that in the early days of our relationship, hon.
Right.
And just about every couple we know describes how they started out with a deep interest in each other and a sense of longing. And they talk about that friendship that they experienced in the beginning and how the friendship emerged into romance. And that was a big part of our story too, right? And that friendship and deep sense of connection is what keeps couples moving forward with the relationship. Like if none of that was happening, you probably wouldn't have kept going.
No.
So this seems to be a pretty common experience for most of us.
Yeah. But somewhere along the way, once our relationship is more established and we've moved everyone under the same roof, that's when things can start to shift.
Oh, yeah.
Our interactions become more about the logistics of daily life more than anything else. Have you paid the credit card bill? Don't forget to take the meat out of the freezer for dinner. Are you going to pick up the kids from practice? Did you change the appointment with the orthodontist? Can you iron my shirts? Will you restock the pantry or put gas in the car or fold the laundry that's been sitting in the dryer, and so on and so on and so on?
Man, you just sound so fun with all that. Like, I want to be your friend there.
Oh, yes. I'm just a joy to be around.
Communicating about household logistics, it's necessary. But sometimes we find ourselves focused more on the logistics than we do on growing and maintaining our relationship.
Right.
And that's when we can just start to feel more like business partners or roommates than real friends and romantic partners. And sadly, this is when couples wake up in the morning and they feel like they don't even know the person sleeping next to them anymore. They've drifted apart. The longing that they once had for each other has been replaced with the busyness and the logistics of life.
Yeah, and we experienced this as well, honey, especially during our season in the family courts with my ex-spouse. We were both highly focused on upcoming meetings with the lawyer and therapist and guardian ad litem and preparing for court dates with declarations and all the paperwork we had to gather. We also had to discuss how to manage all the relational tensions going on in our home and between the two homes. And while all of this was necessary in order to protect my parental rights and advocate for my daughter's well-being, unfortunately, we did not do a good job of safeguarding our marriage during that tough season. And even beyond that season, when Annika was then making a lot of poor choices, and we didn't always agree on how to respond and parent her.
Yeah, we were in the battle trenches together. We were doing our best to support each other through it, but our communication was highly focused on what was going on logistically with the legal case and the struggles that we were navigating with Annika and your ex. And all that was on top of all the regular realities of life and work and maintaining the household and raising our two mutual children who were pretty young at the time. There was no shortage of logistics for us.
No.
And through all of that, we certainly weren't focused on us.
No.
Friendship was not a priority.
No.
We were basically in survival mode. We were united in a common goal. We did have that because we were kind of agreeing on needing to fight this battle. But everything other than that was running on empty, especially our friendship.
Yeah. And, by the time that this challenging season was over and we kind of opened our eyes and realized how depleted our relationship had become, it was almost too late for us.
Yeah,
we were on the verge of calling it quits because we felt so disconnected. We were still living under one roof together, but we each felt very much alone at that point in our marriage.
Yeah, I totally agree. And at times it felt that we were foes. We said that earlier rather than friends.
Yeah.
Our friendship just was almost like it somehow evaporated.
Yeah.
Now, in hindsight, we know it's because we had stopped investing in our friendship. We stopped doing the things that friends do to stay connected. And one of those things was maintaining that longing. Longing is a strong and persistent desire. And this is where I finally became adamant and persistent in my longing to connect with you, honey. And I may not have had a deep desire for you at that time because things were so painful.
Right.
But I did have a deep desire to stay together. And I didn't want to just give up because things were hard.
Yeah, and even though I dreaded those date nights that you insisted on, and I didn't feel connected to you at the time, I'm so grateful now that you were able to tap into your longing to save our relationship and to rebuild our friendship. And let's just share what that actually looked like in the beginning, honey.
Yeah. It's so interesting because even when I think about that whole season, we never really stopped doing date night, even as we were leading into that season. But the problem was we kind of replaced that time from that longing with logistics.
Right.
Technically, we went out on date nights during those 3 years, but all we talked about was guardian ad litems and lawyers and Annika and then, oh, did you get the shopping done? Like all that list of different things you were just running through.
Logistical date night.
It was like a million times. Yeah, it was a logistical date night. So it wasn't really a date night. I mean, we were present. We maybe had a bite to eat and possibly we went to a movie afterward.
But we weren't connecting.
But there was no connection.
Yeah.
We pretty much just sat in silence later. Right. So we get through this season, everything's about logistics. And then we wake up one day and go, I don't even know you. So now date night just goes quiet.
Yeah. So awkward.
Yeah. Like you shared earlier, sometimes there'd be tears right there at the table in the restaurant. I feel bad for the people who had to serve us in that season because we were a mess.
We had very sad faces.
Absolutely. I think we were both grieving the loss of our connection. You know, there was a lot to grieve, but I think we both were like, what happened?
Yeah,
like we used to really enjoy each other and we really didn't know what it was going to take to get some of that back.
Right.
But, you know, for a while there, we kind of relied on that book of conversation starters, remember?
Yeah.
It sounds really silly to do that, but we got to a point where we realized we just don't even have a way to start a conversation with each other. So let's just get this stupid book and answer some stupid questions and let's see, see if it actually does.
It was
something.
a good jumping off point for us.
It was, yeah. We would flip through the pages and we'd ask each other, crazy, silly questions like, if you could go anywhere in the universe on a rocket ship, where would you go? And I remember you used to roll your eyes and I just like, all right, I guess I'll answer this. And then you would kind of warm up and we would move along. And it seemed weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of random questions. But it kind of helped us to get past the awkwardness, or maybe it presented a new kind of awkwardness to force us past the old awkwardness and just start opening up to each other again. And sometimes we even ended up laughing because we were like, well, that actually was pretty funny, right? Just the way that we would respond to these wacky questions.
Yeah. Some of our answers were pretty out there. But really what that book of conversation starters did was it created an atmosphere of new longing that could emerge between us.
Yeah.
We started to tell each other stories about ourselves that we'd never shared before. And we slowly began longing to know and understand each other again, little by little.
Yeah.
And, it didn't happen after just a few date nights. It really did take some time and patience, especially since we were still having to talk about our challenging logistics at home, raising 3 kids. But we chose not to do that on date night. We actually set some boundaries around what we would talk about on date night and what we wouldn't talk about on date night. And that's really important as well.
Totally. Yeah. It's not about just physically showing up.
Right.
It's about what do you do to engage while you're there. And then over time, we were able to find a more healthy balance between the logistics and the longing.
Right.
We intentionally took time to cultivate our friendship by asking each other questions, getting curious. We got out of the conversation starter books and started asking real questions, right? We started sharing stories with each other, making new discoveries about each other. And that process really helped to save our marriage. We were patient, we stayed committed, and we were able to revitalize that friendship. And now 10 years later, I would say our friendship piece of our marriage is stronger than it's ever been.
Yes. And, we're still intentionally growing our friendship in this way. It's not a one and done thing. This is ongoing.
Yeah.
Just last weekend, we were out on one of our day dates, which we like to do. We were hanging out under a big willow tree, drinking coffee before we headed in to see a movie. And I just mentioned how the willow tree was like a big igloo.
Yeah,
it was like almost
surrounding
covered.
us.
Yeah, it was cool. And then I learned something new about your childhood, honey, that I didn't know before. When you started sharing a story, that me commenting on the willow tree kind of triggered a story for you of how at your grandparents' old house, they had these 2 big grapefruit trees in the front yard. And your papa groomed these trees to be like a big igloo. And you and your siblings would hide under that tree and play under its cover. And you even had a picnic table under there, which I was like, no way. That's so cool.
It was great shade in the Phoenix sunshine.
And I'd never heard that story before. Or how you'd work as a team to clean up all the rotten grapefruits to keep your igloo fort neat and tidy. I'd never heard all of that.
So many rotten grapefruits. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Sometimes I think we tend to believe that we already know everything there is to know about our spouse, especially after a number of years, right? Or that they already know everything about us. And so we kind of stop asking questions and maybe even stop sharing our stories.
Right.
But the reality is there's more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That is simply a lie that isn't true.
Right.
Even after 21 years of marriage, we're still discovering things that we didn't know about each other. And because we're always changing and growing as people, we need to maintain our longing toward knowing and discovering where each other is emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
That's right. There's always something we can learn about our spouse when we truly long to connect. We want to balance the logistics of life with a genuine longing to build and maintain our friendship. And to do that, we must be intentional and take time to make a heart-to-heart connection on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And if you want a little more insight around how to apply the simple skills of asking good questions and telling each other stories in your relationship, we've put a link in the show notes to an article from the Gottman Institute called F is for Friendship.
Yeah,
It's kind of insightful.
That's so good. I wonder if we go all the way back to kind of the beginning here, where we talked about one of the big needs for men is about this shared experience, shared activity together. I think it's interesting because we can actually plug that thought into this whole idea of logistics and actually use the logistics that we have to navigate in order to create that opportunity for us to connect through shared experience. And you use that word intentional.
Right.
And I think that's key to all of this. It's actually part of the logistics to say, how do we, in the midst of all these other things that we're managing and we're business partners around, let's add one little thing to be business partners in there, and that is to actually escalate the regular date nights. And in those date nights, let's do some activity.
Yeah, right? Get it on the schedule.
Absolutely. And ladies, I bet I would challenge you to give this a try. Find a way to plug in a date night here and there that has to do with some sort of an activity that your husband really enjoys connecting with you through that. And then watch what happens to the conversation after the activity's over.
Yeah, I just did that recently when I took you to the car show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I don't particularly like to wander around car shows, but I love to watch you talk about the cars and notice all the cool stuff. And we did have a great day after that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, there's kind of a connection here between this whole logistics and longing. And if we can make it part of our priority to get these date nights on there, have activity, that can actually begin to grow our longing, right? But it's not just about date nights. It also means connecting on a daily basis.
Right.
Even if it's just for about 10 minutes to check in with what each other has experienced, maybe make some sort of a heart-to-heart connection.
Right.
And here's my challenge for you on a daily basis. Get rid of the, how was your day, honey? Oh, it was fine. Get rid of that. Challenge yourself not to say it was fine anymore. Say a little bit more, share a little bit more of your heart. Go back to, rather than being vague, be vulnerable about what was going on, but also tie this together and set aside 10 minutes to sit down on the couch and turn off all the devices and tell the kids, hey, we just need 10 minutes.
Yeah, get rid of the distractions.
And then, we also need some extended time together once in a while.
Right.
Might be an overnight or just a weekend here and there. And choose to make that a top priority to really spend focused time together. Time that doesn't involve logistics or problem solving, but that's just quality time to connect and build your friendship.
That's right. And spending quality time together is one important aspect of friendship, right? Friends do things together and focus on each other.
That's right.
Another aspect of friendship is that we enjoy ourselves. We have fun, laugh, and explore together. And like I said earlier, ladies, spending time doing things with your spouse is something they need.
Yeah.
They need to go on adventures with us.
Yeah. Friends also share a fondness and an admiration for one another, right? They acknowledge each other's positive traits and characteristics. They're proud of each other's accomplishments. They give specific compliments. They show gratitude toward each other. And remember, guys, women need to feel cherished. Genuine words of affirmation and appreciation are going to help her to know that she's special.
That's right. And friends know how special they are to each other because of their investment into the relationship. As mutual respect and trust is cultivated, commitment grows.
For sure.
Friends know they can count on each other when tough times come along, and they've got an empathetic shoulder to lean on or even cry on sometimes. And for couples, having a secure friendship correlates with a positive perspective of the relationship and a strong sense of usness. Like we said earlier, it's so important.
Yeah, when things get tough, even when you're feeling frustrated, you might just ask yourself, what does it look like to just be a good friend right now? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And if you've been struggling to maintain a friendship in your relationship, or if it feels like your spouse is more of a foe than a friend, it's our hope that today's discussion and understanding the importance of that strong friendship is going to motivate you to take some action and work on befriending your partner all over again, to revitalize your friendship and connection by investing in your relationship.
Yeah.
It's going to help you stay connected in the long run when the kids are, home for visitation and there's chaos all around you, or when you get to empty nest stage and there aren't any kids. You don't want to be looking at each other going, who are you?
Yeah.
Like you really want to be able to stay united, and you can stay united and reduce the tension and the conflict in the midst of all of that. And you're playing the long game.
Yep.
Building a solid friendship is going to help you to move away from feeling like your roommates or business partners. And as a byproduct, it'll actually supercharge your passion and your intimacy as well.
Absolutely.
And I know for a lot of us guys, that's really important. So I would encourage you to think about that, but that's for another podcast episode. Now, we know that all of this is possible. We really do at a very personal level.
Yep.
Because we've done it ourselves.
Yep, we've been there.
But it does take intentionality. It takes patience. It takes persistence and a desire to succeed and make it to the other side. I just have to say, don't hear us say that if things are so bad that like as soon as you look at each other, you're both already at a level 8 out of 10 and in your emotional activation and you're just, exploding in these big fights, to say, well, we have to do date night anyway, and let's just go end in ruin every single time we go out. Don't hear us say that this is like don't hear us say that this is a rule that you have to do this in every season, every moment. Okay. Sometimes this needs to be paired with professional support.
Right.
Counseling might be really important. Coaching might be really important. Finding a mentor to help you to figure out the actual practical ways that you're not going to let these date nights get out of hand if you're really trying to build some regular rhythm to your date nights. So please don't hear us say, just force date nights and everything will be okay. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah, but we are saying to be willing to try something new.
Absolutely.
Don't stay stuck.
That's right.
Maybe it's something that we did talk about today, or maybe you just need to get creative around how you spend time together. You might want to check out some of the resources offered by the Gottman Institute. They are the leading experts on healthy relationships. Their stuff is great.
Ton of research, yeah.
And one of their books looks really interesting to me. In fact, we just ordered it. And we're about to start it. It's called 8 Dates. And the tagline reads, Essential Conversations for a Lifetime of Love. I really like that because no matter how long you've been married or how strong your relationship is, there's always room for something new to help you get even better.
That's right.
Right? To grow and maintain friendship is a lifelong adventure. So if that book sounds interesting to you too, like it does to us, check out the link in the show notes to learn more about it.
That's right. So move from vague to vulnerable. Move from logistics to longing. And be intentional about the way you're building your friendship. I promise you the payoff is so worth it.
It is.
We're in a season of 21 years in our marriage now where we're getting to live that.
Yeah, we actually enjoy being together now.
Exactly.
It's so amazing. You can get that loving feeling, that friendship back.
You lost the love.
No, don't
you don't want me to sing?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe.
We need to wrap up.
Okay, well, I guess with that, it's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.